Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tackling something that affects literally millions of people. But here's the catch. It almost always operates entirely in the shadows. We are mapping out the invisible architecture of control. We're going to break down 5 highly specific signs of manipulation. And more importantly, we're going to compare how these tactics feel in the moment versus what a healthy dynamic actually looks like. The goal here is to help you spot these patterns in your own life.
Now, you might be wondering, why do we miss it? I mean, manipulation is obvious, right? We kind of picture this cinematic villain twirling their mustache. But that brings us to our first really crucial point. Manipulation does not announce itself with flashing warning signs. In fact, most people who are being manipulated have absolutely no idea it's even happening. And honestly, that's the whole point. Think about it. If someone showed up on a first date and immediately started criticizing your personality, you'd walk right out the door. That is exactly why they don't do it.
Instead, manipulation wears a brilliant disguise. It hides right behind kindness, deep concern, and sometimes even love. It might look like them disguising isolation as deep romantic passion, saying things like, "I just want to spend every waking second with you." Now think about how a healthy relationship feels. It feels safe, supportive, and most of all, clear. But manipulation mimics those exact feelings early on, just to disarm you. And by the time you realize what's actually been done, the structural damage to your confidence is already complete.
So let's move into our first section and take a look at this invisible trap.
Specifically, we are going to look at the powerful dynamic of guilt and the victim.
All right, sign 1, unexplained guilt. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you couldn't pinpoint exactly what you did wrong, but somehow literally every single conversation ends with you apologizing? Let's say they completely forget a major anniversary, but somehow by the end of the night, you were the one apologizing for being too demanding or stressing them out. In a healthy relationship, if someone's hurt, you discuss it, you find the root cause, and you move forward. A manipulator, though, they are absolute experts in making their target feel responsible for things they didn't even do.
The way they pull this off is honestly as fascinating as it is terrifying. They just smoothly twist reality. Let's look at a real-world example. Say you actually bring up the fact that they forgot that important commitment. Instead of a normal, healthy response like, "Oh man, I am so sorry, I totally messed up," they twist it. They might say something like, "Well, I've been so incredibly stressed because you've been putting way too much pressure on me lately." Just like that, they've made you responsible for their actions. And they do it so smoothly with such conviction that you actually start questioning your own recollection of events.
Which leads us directly into sign 2. No matter what goes down, they constantly play the victim. You see, in a healthy dynamic, people take accountability for their mess-ups, but in the manipulator's narrative, they are always the one who suffered the most. Even when you finally gather the courage to confront them about something they did to you, they deploy this tactic to completely derail the whole conversation.
It creates this highly toxic dynamic of confrontation versus the flip. In a healthy relationship, addressing a behavior leads to mutual understanding, right? But here, they immediately flip the script. They take your perfectly legitimate concern and make it seem like a vicious attack on their character. You bring up a valid hurt, and suddenly, you are the one comforting the person who hurt you. It is incredibly disorienting, and it's a super effective defense mechanism because it keeps you permanently on defense, meaning you can never actually address what they did.
Let's move on to our next section, weaponizing your weaknesses.
I want you to think back to how the relationship started. Early on, they were probably super warm, incredibly interested, and just deeply curious about you, asking all these probing questions about your past, your fears, your deepest insecurities. Now, in a healthy dynamic, sharing those vulnerabilities is a beautiful thing. It builds genuine trust. But here, the motive is entirely different.
Let this sink in for a second. That wasn't genuine connection. That was research. I know, that's one of the most painful realizations for anyone who has been through this. But they were simply collecting your personal, vulnerable information, just packing it away in a vault to use against you later.
Watch how this builds into an entire arsenal of control. They collect it, they store it, and they just wait. When they feel like they're losing their grip, or they just need to assert dominance, they reach right into that vault. Let's say you confided in them early on that you have a deep fear of abandonment. Later, during a massive argument where they need the upper hand, they will use that exact fear against you, maybe threatening to leave right then and there, or telling you your past trauma is making you act crazy. It is a calculated, precision strike right at your foundation.
Which brings us to section 4, isolation and unpredictability.
Here we have sign 4, the slow drift. A manipulator is smart. They know that if you have strong friends and family, those people are going to spot the toxic behavior a mile away. But they never isolate you suddenly. That would raise massive alarm bells. If they demanded you stop seeing your best friend on day one, you'd be out of there. Instead, the isolation is highly engineered to be extremely gradual.
It happens in these really subtle, methodical steps. Step 1, they create small, almost invisible conflicts. Step 2, they start dropping subtle comments like, "Hey, did you notice how your sister spoke to you today? I really don't think she respects you." Step 3, they frame themselves as your only true ally, insisting that literally no one else understands you the way they do. Until finally, step 4, you find yourself drifting away from your entire support system, totally unaware that they engineered that whole drift on purpose. So, with your support system gone or weakened, they drop sign 5, an entirely unpredictable cycle of alternating between reward and punishment. In a healthy relationship, you have a consistent baseline of respect. Even when you're arguing, that underlying respect is still there. But here, the baseline is pure chaos.
You end up trapped between two dizzying extremes. The reward phase, they are warm, generous, loving, reminding you of just how great things can be. And then, completely without warning, the punishment phase. They become cold, hypercritical, and painfully distant. You literally never know which version of this person is going to walk through the door on any given day.
And let me tell you, this unpredictability takes a massive psychological toll. You end up constantly walking on eggshells. You spend all of your energy trying to please them, totally hyper-focused on managing their mood just to keep the peace. And in the process, you completely ignore your own needs. Your survival mechanism kicks into overdrive, and your whole life becomes about stabilizing their emotions instead of actually living yours.
Let's look at our final section, the illusion of normalcy.
Looking at all of this laid out, you might be wondering from the outside, how on earth does anyone endure this for months or even years? Well, the single most dangerous thing about manipulation is that it feels totally normal while it's happening to you. Because the isolation was slow, because the guilt was subtle, and the unpredictability was heavily mixed with genuine warmth, it just feels like a relationship with normal ups and downs. You convince yourself that you just need to try a little bit harder to fix things.
Over time, by constantly twisting reality and weaponizing your insecurities, the manipulator builds these invisible walls around your thinking. By the time the overall pattern actually comes into focus, those walls make it incredibly difficult to even trust your own judgment. You catch yourself thinking, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe all of this really is my fault.
And that is exactly why laying out these signs in this explainer is so absolutely crucial. As the source material so profoundly puts it, recognizing these signs is not just knowledge, it is protection. Seeing the pattern, giving a concrete name to the guilt, the isolation, the unpredictable mood swings, that right there is your very best defense. Because you can't dismantle a trap until you can clearly see how it's built. So, I want to leave you with this question to really reflect on. What patterns are hiding in plain sight in your own life? Are you constantly apologizing for things you didn't do? Are you feeling isolated? Are you spending your days managing someone else's unpredictable moods? I really hope that if you need this information, it has found you exactly when you need it most. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay aware, trust your instincts, and keep learning.